So I'm very excited to present the 2014 Citizen Survey Report of Results. This is our 7th survey that we do every other year. It began in 2002 and has adapted a little bit over the years, but for the most part just is a tool that we rely upon to give us a good view of the perceptions of our community and our citizens. Okay, I'm going to pass on the remote. So, background for the survey, again, this is our 7th biennial citizen survey. That's every other year. We conduct the survey in September and October of each year, and that was no different in 2014. It's intended to assess the overall quality of life and city services, in addition to getting an idea of the thoughts and perceptions of our citizens when it comes to our city commissions. These are citizens that maybe don't participate in public meetings, perhaps don't join us at public comment sessions, but are the driving force in our community as it stands. We do a survey of 1,200 households, and that is a representative sample of our community of nearly 24,000 in our census right now. That tool comes with a postcard that comes out about a week or two before the survey that says you will be getting this survey. It's very important. We'd love to have your input. Please return it when you can. And then the survey tool itself is sent with a cover letter from the mayor that explains the importance. With 1,200 households, that is designed to provide a representative sample of the entire community. So for the higher the response rate we get, the better idea we get of our perceptions as a whole. So a lot of the survey, if anybody has received it or seen it in the past, is based on a 5-point Likert scale. When that gauges our opinions on each item in a strongly agree, neutral, disagree, and strongly disagree fashion. So it gives us a range of options for people to report their opinions. The report itself and the survey itself actually is organized similarly in every iteration. We have our standard city questions, which are typically the first 14 questions, our commission and task force questions, which vary from year to year, demographic questions, and then our open-ended comment questions. Then in the understanding the results, these are just a few things to keep in mind as we go through the report. There are typically several questions that don't receive the same response rate as other questions. For instance, people don't understand the question, they don't have an opinion on the matter, and so they'll either choose to not answer that item or they'll choose the don't know response. In those instances, at every question we look at the instance of actual response rates per question to be sure that each question itself is statistically valid in the response rate that we receive. The estimates that we have are valid within 95% confidence interval. And then our data comparison, we've been comparing to ourselves lately more than our benchmark survey. We do have some 2,000 numbers from the National Citizen Survey benchmark that was provided back in 2002. And then we have different geographic sectors as well. So I'll present tonight on the survey as a whole as responded to by the community as a whole, but we do have the ability to go into the different areas that we break the survey into to find out if a particular sector of the city has different opinions on something than another. So. This is, one of my most favorite questions of the survey because we've done very well in this area over the years. It's our standard city service, let me make sure I'm on the right page here. Standard, that shouldn't say city service necessarily, but our standard city quality of life results. What we do with our scores, we have percentages that we use, but then we also use a weighted scale to convert those to a score on a 100-point scale. So for instance, an 84 would be like a B version when comparing to other communities. And this is some of the things that, this is the scale that the National Citizen Survey uses as well. So it provides us an opportunity to compare with some of those benchmarks. We have, over the years, had excellent quality of life ratings. When we look at quality of life overall, we received an 84 in 2014. Quality of neighborhood, a 78. And then when we look at a place to raise children, live, and retire, we also receive very favorable scores in the 80s. As a place to retire, we do have a lower response rate on that a bit. Not something that's of a concern, but it is a little bit lower. Interestingly enough, when the survey was out, it was either, I think, just in the middle or just after we received a mention in Where to Retire magazine as one of the best places to retire. So it was interesting to see that with the survey results coming in. Specific characteristics as they relate to Moscow, this is something that we've kind of looked at over the years. In this table here, looking at the items that are included in that question, I've included our lowest scores in the year that we received that lowest score in, as well as our highest score in the year that coordinates to that. Over the years, we've seen a decent amount of percent change in some areas. For instance, air quality swung from 15% up there with job opportunities. In light of what we've seen in the economy in the last 10 to 12 years, that's not as surprising, I guess I should say. And then also we've seen some increases, like, for instance, the openness and acceptance of the community towards people of diverse backgrounds and some of those other items. So this provides us a good picture of where we've been over the years. Also looking at context of the year the survey was taken in can help us get an idea of what was going on at that time and what may be influencing perceptions. Safety as a service that is provided by the City of Moscow. This includes law enforcement as well as fire in this particular item. Looking at the bar charts, I've done a historical bar chart for the 100-point scores. Violent crimes, people feel most safe from violent crimes, followed by fires and then property crimes. And you can see by the bar charts, nothing tremendous has moved there one way or the other. We do see a few points up and down over the years. But these are very favorable scores when we look at them. And like I said, if you look at the years that this survey was taken in, that can give you some context for what the score may be. Particularly, we're in the 80s for safety in your neighborhood and downtown areas. Parks is a little bit lower, and then with current levels of street lighting, a little bit lower again at 67. So, but again, all within expectations from what we've seen in previous years. When we look at problems in Moscow, it's important to look at this one with a little bit different twist. The higher the bar, the less of a problem it is. So we have to keep that in mind with this one. The items there, the first three that actually have asterisks, are all items that did not receive the same response rate as other questions. They had a 20% or higher non-response rate. This has been typical for alcohol and drug abuse over the surveys. Domestic violence actually had a higher non-response rate this year, which it's always been high, but it hasn't hit that 20% threshold. This year it did. Following that, I've just listed them in order here from greatest concern to least concern, followed by the taxes, houses and buildings, growth, traffic, crime, and loitering youth. So, looking at the next item, this is a bank of questions that concerns population, business and retail, and jobs growth. Some of the items that stand out, especially looking, again, if we look at the context that the survey was taken in and what's happened over the past few years, this is our historical trends as we've seen them. And we're looking at percentages here, not the 100-point scale. It was for ease of comparison. The items here, instead of the agree scale, is the too slow, just right, or too fast Likert scale that we've employed. The items here are showing let me just double check. We're showing this growth is too fast. So for instance, for population, 11% of our community feels that population growth is too fast. For business and retail, 50% feel it's too fast. And then for jobs, 75% agree. I'm sorry, that's got to be backwards. I apologize. I've got that scale flipped. So jobs growth, they're feeling that jobs growth is too slow by 75%. My apologies, 50 and 11 respectively. Looking at frequency for service use. This one gauges how often people do the various items listed in the chart. It includes visiting the library, participating in a rec program, visiting a city park, recycling, volunteering, or visiting the 1912 Center. So these bars are not a historical trend. If you look, the blue from left to right is once or never, twice, 3 to 12 times, 13 to 25 times, and 26 times. We by far have more recyclers, for instance, than we do people who visit the library. So that kind of just gives us a gauge of what people or how many times people are accessing these services. And we do have historical information on that as well, so we see some trends and can track that as needed. So. This question here, I've shown the last three the current survey and the previous two. We do have information on this all the way back to 2002, but to give us a recent idea of the activity. These are the items that we track when it comes to the services that the city directly provides. Again, if you look at the scores over time, they're very similar. Most are within 3-ish points of each other. Recycling is one that we've taken a little bit more of a hit on. That's a 5-point dip this year. But again, in context of talking about single stream and some of the other things that were going on in the fall, it's not entirely surprising. We've also seen, for instance, Lewiston has taken on a new single stream recycling program, and that may be on people's minds as they answer these questions. But for the most part, not a lot of movement, which is encouraging that we're continuing to maintain the level of service that we provided in years past.